I'm really happy to be here with one of my biggest mentor, Dr. Coach Ron Slaymaker. Coach, good to have you here.
Great to be here, Chris.
Coach, you're 80 years old. You're pure life wisdom. Tell us about your life and especially about your basketball career as a player and as a coach.
Well, Chris, let me first say that I think I'm a reasonably average, common person, like a lot of other people. You know, some are blessed to have more talent, more intelligence, better looks, the whole bit. But I think I'm pretty common, and consequently, I think I've had a magical career. And being 80 years old and still very active, and I just am blessed. And I don't know if I have any secrets to life, but I hope I can share some of my life with other people.
So you've been here at Emporia State. You've been a player and a coach for 44 years. Your jersey is retired here in the gym. Your jersey as a coach is also retired. You're the only player ever to be retired twice, as a coach and as a player. Tell us about those 44 years. Give us an insight.
Well, you know, from the very beginning, way back in grade school, I wanted to be a coach and a teacher. I told my teachers then. And so I've had a nice, smooth path, in a way, to being a coach. And having the privilege of playing and coaching at the same school that's pretty special. And I coached for a year under the gentleman that I was coached by. And he was my mentor. And he told me once that if I ever wanted his job, I better be out on my own, have my own head coaching position. So I took a head coaching job of all sports at a high school that was a part of Emporia State University. And I did that for 6 years and was reasonably successful. Well, all of a sudden he's getting old enough, he wants to retire, he wants to know if I want his job. And as a result of that and the blessing of our president, I became the head coach at Emporia State in 1970. And I had that position for 28 years, retired in 1998 with, I think, a pretty successful career. I got to a point where I wasn't having as much fun. I think every one of us has to recognize that sometimes in all of our careers, you need to be having some fun, enjoyment, and feel like you're accomplishing something. And we had become a member of the NCAA, and I just was not into it. And as a result, I started thinking, hey, I've done this long enough. I'm in my early 60s. It's time maybe that I let somebody else do it. And so after the 28 years, I did retire. And people ask me, even now, today at 80 years old, what part of your career did you like best? Well, when I was coaching high school, back when I started, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. When I was an assistant coach at the college level, hey, this is where it's at. I mean, I could do this my whole life. I became a head coach. That's it. Being a head coach was just perfect. I retire, and a lot of laughs on other people's part. I became a basketball referee, and I did that for 17 years. And people say, well, how about that? And I said, that's the greatest thing ever. I wish I'd have done it my whole career. But late in my officiating career, I was having some physical problems with my leg, and as it turned out, I needed a new hip. I got a new hip and thought maybe I better back off the refereeing a little bit, and a high school girls job came open.
And now you are still coaching. You're coaching a high school girls team. That's awesome. And let's dig deeper a little bit, because you are the master of understatement. As a player, you had a 91% free throw average on your career. So you've been a shooting machine.
Well, I don't know.
We've just been to the gym and you made 11 out of 11 and you were 80 years old.
I wish that we'd had the 3-point line back when I played. I was a pretty good shooter, but, I spent a lot of time at it.
Yeah, and we come to your work ethic in a minute. And as a coach, 28 years, right? You've been a coach here at Emporia for 28 years.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then you were introduced into the Kansas Basketball Hall of Fame, right?
Yes.
When was that?
Oh, that was in 2002, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
2002. And today I can be with you here in Emporia, and everywhere we go, everybody knows you here. Everybody respectfully says, "Hey, Coach Slay, how are you doing?" And that's the interesting part. When we worked together, what always impressed me, was pretty impressive to me, is you are a great coach, but you are even a much better human being. Tell us about character, about work ethic. What can we learn for our lives from sport? What can we learn from sports to leading a successful life?
Well, I think all coaches are a little bit prejudiced, and we feel like there's more to be learned from being involved in sports than anything, although that's not entirely true. There's a lot of professions where you can help people, serve people, people can learn from you. And in my particular case, I always followed the motto that you help enough other people get what they want, and you will get what you want. And I think the lesson to be learned from other people is that in helping young people, help them develop their personalities, their ability to communicate, their ability to smile, some of the simple things in life. It's got me a long ways because I don't feel like I'm more talented, better looking, more intelligent than anyone, but I have been able to communicate with people. I think I smile a lot, and a smile it's like 1,000 words. And I think if anybody is trying to work with other people, help them develop their personalities. Of course, you mentioned work ethic. I was always...
Let's stay with the personal part, leading people. We know each other now for 20 years. And in 20 years, you've never criticized me once. Never. And we had times where we really worked together on an intensive basis. We did basketball camps here at your school and in Germany, in Bamberg, where I've been a head coach. And tell me your thoughts about praise and recognition and criticism.
Well, if you put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I would hope that praise would be 9 out of the 10. I think criticism, constructively given, is important. I think anyone would agree with that. But, body language, how you criticize, the tone of your voice, all of those things can get a good message across or no message across. And I think that's a matter of, as we grow older, we're more capable of reading other people and being able to criticize and at the same time not criticize, if that has any meaning. Because everybody needs criticisms. Many times we don't want it, we don't like it, but we need it. And but it has to be given in a way that it's constructive enough that it will be absorbed. Because if not, you're going to be rejected.
How did you do that with your players?
Well, I'm about 90% positive. I'm going to find the things to praise them about. However, I can and have been pretty critical and pretty assertively critical, especially when you're seeing the same mistakes over and over and over. We're all going to make mistakes, and that has to be recognized so that those people that are making the mistakes can make corrections. But when somebody is making the same mistake over and over and over, it simply means they're not focusing, they're not listening, they're not concentrating, and so you have to get to another tone of voice. And that almost always will get somebody's attention. I don't like to operate that way. I hate to operate that way, but I also know that at times that's the only way. And as long as it's not an everyday a thing, I think that's it. Those coaches, and I'm not being critical of other coaches that are negative, in their approach. There are 100 different approaches to life, but I have learned through life that being positive is so much more effective. And even though it may not give you immediate results, in the long run, and that's what really counts, in the long run, you're going to be way ahead.
Was there any specific moment in your life where you've learned that lesson?
Well, you know, I hooked up with a guy named Stan Kellner many years ago. He had written a book. I read the book and liked it, and I called him at the...
What was the title of the book?
Taking It to the Limit. And I called Stan because his phone number was in the book. Got him at 10 o'clock one night back in New York, and we struck up a good conversation. I wanted him to send me a dozen books for a class that I was teaching. He did. He wasn't worried about the money. I sent the money later. But through that, he and I became very good friends, and as a result, he came to Emporia from New York and did a clinic, a one-day clinic, and like, wow, this is something. This is really something. I want to tap into this, and did. And he and I became very good friends. The next year we did a basketball camp. The next year we did another one, and we did until he passed away, about 25 in a row, and he was one of those very charismatic people who was extremely positive. And every time I was around him, I took notes. Every time he talked, I took notes. And as a result, what he said became a part of me. And his message became a part of my message. And I think that was a profound thing that happened in my life. And he's passed away now, but his legacy was that he really helped a lot of people, and I've tried to do the same thing.
He was a great guy. We were running in the camps together, the basketball camps. Talk about when you were coaching, you taught basketball, but you also taught life. You started out every session at camp with we would call it motivational speech, where you taught the players some lessons for life. Give us your insights on that. Why has that been so important to you?
Well, I often said, if no one's listening, I'm listening. And if no one is getting motivated, I'm getting motivated. I'm big on locker room slogans, things on the wall, motivational sayings, poems, riddles, all those kind of things. I'm really big on that. And I'll tell the people that I'm talking to, if I'm over your head, this doesn't mean anything to you, you're not interested, it's okay. I'm interested. And if I am interested and I get more motivated from whatever I'm talking about, then I'm more capable of giving you a better job or lesson or whatever it may be. So sometimes I think early I may have worried about it. Is anybody listening? But I think as you get older, you realize everybody is not listening. But the ones that are, that's important. And if it's only one, then you've helped one person. And I'm still doing the same thing. I'm now coaching high school girls. And every day they get a motivational moment that I have them, one girl, they all have to look at what's on the bulletin board, but one girl is being picked to tell us what it means. Recite it and tell us what it means. And, sometimes I'm thinking, yeah, nobody's paying attention. But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, hopefully I'm still around. I know they have listened. Young people are like that. They'll fool you, trying to make you pretend they're not paying attention when they really are.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Give us an insight on some of those lessons. What are your best life and success lessons you can pass on?
Well, I think obviously work ethic is so important. I don't care what it is you're doing. It has to be in sports, it be in life itself, in business. You're just not going to get it done if you don't have a good work ethic. And the important thing there is that...
What does work ethic mean to you?
Well, it means to me that I'm the one that has to do the biggest amount of work. If I'm trying to teach work ethic, I got to be doing it. I can't sit around and just talk about it. You got to be the inspiration behind the words. And I've always tried to do that. I think sometimes, maybe now in my later life, I've paid a price by sometimes working too hard, if that's possible. But I also feel okay about it.
Do you believe in a group the leader should be the hardest worker, always be the role model?
Oh, yeah, no question about it. Do you get that? Sometimes. And when you do, wow, what a blessing you have. You're going to have a good team. You're going to have a good business. You're going to have a good whatever it might be. If your best player, your best salesman, your best of whatever it may be is your hardest worker. That's a given. Others will fall in place. Then you'll have a bunch of good leaders, and obviously that's a winner.
Other life lessons? So we had work ethic.
Well, I think don't forget about family. Family becomes sometimes a secondary thing in our jobs, in our sports, in whatever we may be doing, trying to make a living, trying to make money. Sometimes family gets pushed aside, but it's in the long run. You just got to recognize it and get back on the straight and narrow. Take care of the family first. And that even for the young people who are hopefully have parents who are supporting them, recognize that you're being supported and recognize all the sacrifices that people are making around you to help you be successful. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, that gets kind of a secondary kind of thing, and it really needs to be first.
I still remember some of your quotes you taught to the players, you taught to me, that really stick with me. And some of them I even pass on in my seminars today. And one is a story, how do you feel? Great. We did a camp, everybody's been tired in the morning of the third day, and you just walked in there and you just pushed everybody and taught them the lesson, fake it until you make it. Can you take us into that moment and explain that? How do you feel to our audience?
Certainly. There's, I don't care if you're in a seminar, you're in your job, you're in a camp, a sport camp. You're not 100% every minute. It's not possible. We search for it, we reach for it, but it's something that is a little bit elusive. Well, we all know that the way we sit, the way we stand, the way we talk, our body language in general has so much to do with what we really are. And you walk into a group that half the people are slumped over, the other half are half asleep, and you raise your voice in a positive way and ask them, how do you feel? I mean, loudly, with some conviction and some passion, and they wake up, they straighten up. They're now listening. And what you teach them is just to respond to me, great. Well, you just mentioned you fake it sometimes till you make it. I so much believe in that we're not all 100% all the time, and you do have to fake it. But fake it enough that maybe, hey, I kind of like what I'm doing. I kind of like having a better attitude. I kind of like working a lot harder than I was. And all of a sudden, maybe it becomes a little bit more a part of you. Instead of having to be kicked in the tail to get you to do something, you do it on your own. Self-motivation is where it's all at. As leaders, as business leaders, sport leaders, it's part of our job to motivate people to do certain things. But when they get to a point in their lives when they're doing it without your help, now you've gained something, because that is with them the rest of their lives. So when I come in and as I've heard you do also, say, how do you feel, with conviction, and they respond, great. Hey, the body language now is telling you I'm a whole lot better than I was 5 seconds ago. and it just becomes a part of the routine of whatever you're doing. And with adults, young people, I don't care who it is, I think it works. And you might use it in different ways, but again, that body language, what you say is important, but how you say it and how you say back to me, great. You can say softly, great, or you can shout it so that somebody 5 miles away can hear you. That's how you say it. And I think how you say things is maybe far more important than what you say.
Coach, you are a leading example. In 20 years, I've never seen you with a bad attitude, with a bad body language, or tired, or making excuses. That's a real inspiration. Thanks for sharing that. Has there been a point in your life where you used the fake it until you make it strategy to become successful?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. We all have our down moments, and I have as much as anybody else, but I had prostate cancer about 20 years ago, and I like to play the little what's good about it game. It's there for anybody to play. The worse the situation, the harder you have to dig to find something that's good about something that was bad. And we all have things in our life, the adversities in life. Sometimes people ask me what I miss about coaching in college. And I say, well, I miss the adversity, meaning that every day I come to work and I almost always had to put out a fire. Sometime during the day there was some adversity, and it gets to be a way of life. Well, when I quit coaching, I missed that a little bit. That's why people say, well, that's why you started refereeing, because there was plenty of adversity there. But if you can play the what's good about it game, as I did that day that I was told I had prostate cancer, that before I left the doctor's office, I had 3 or 4 things on my list, of which I ended up with about 25 items on that list, that what was good about having prostate cancer. And I remember the first one being, well, I'm going to have surgery and somebody's going to make a lot of money. So that was my first one on my list. And truthfully, I probably come up with about 25 different things that I became a little bit of an inspiration for others. I'm not sure.
You were sitting, I told that story, I passed it on, you told it to me. You were sitting on your table and had a piece of paper and a pen, and you wanted to find those 25 reasons, right?
Oh, yeah, because, I didn't feel like I was going to die within 5 days, but at the same time it was serious. I was going to have a major surgery, and yeah, I was searching for things why this is a good thing. Maybe we caught it early. That was a good thing. And that, well, there was just a bunch of things that really got me through that. And it's helped me be an inspiration to other people, which other people are inspirations to me sometimes. And listen, life is full of adversity. Anybody thinks they're living a perfect life that's not true. You're lying to yourself, because we all have problems, whether it be health problems or marital problems or just growing up problems, whatever the case may be. When we're having those problems, they are the biggest problem in the world. They're usually exaggerated and out of proportion, but at that time that doesn't seem that way to us. It's huge, and going back then to that, having that positive attitude, this is going to turn out okay. And almost always, if you sleep on something, you get up the next morning, it's a whole lot better. You've worked it out. You can go on. Life goes on, and not that things go away, but you're better able to deal with them and in a positive way.
Great thoughts. Thanks for sharing. Can you dig a little deeper on that adversity topic? Because I think that's the biggest challenge for most people out there. Dealing with their everyday problems, rising above their problems so they can move on in life.
I had with my team this year, my girls' team, had a nice team. I thought everybody loved each other. late in the season, I find out that, no, they didn't like each other. One of my key players was over on one side, and several of my other key players were over on another side. And they had been faking it, I think, as we say, fake it till you make it. But I found out that it was not a good situation. Their families got involved. Emails started flying. Social media started flying. It was something to me that was about the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Now, how did I deal with it? It was hard. I guarantee you one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was to stay positive, stay on the top side of it. Did I want to get down in the gutter and fight and say exactly what I felt? Yes, I did. But I held back. I stayed on the upper road. And now I think I can safely say that every one of those people, one side or the other, I'm still friends with. I'm not sure they have ever worked it out amongst each other. I've tried. I reached some stone walls on it, but I'm still working on it. You know, I'm not giving up that I can get those 4 girls to actually love each other, because as I found out, they didn't. It had been going on for years, since they were in the 6th grade. That was 6 years ago. They didn't like each other. And so that was pretty ingrained into their attitude.
How did you deal with those 4 girls? Did you talk to them in person? Did you talk to them as a group?
Yeah, I did. When I first became aware of the situation, that's my style, is to get it out in the open. Let's talk about it.
But in front of the team?
No, in front of them. First in front of the team, because I didn't know that some of the girls were behind what was going on, and that was saying that one of the girls was faking being hurt, faking being sick, which I didn't think that she was. But I talked to the whole team. I'm big on, if the shoe fits, wear it. If I'm talking about something, you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. If you know what I'm talking about, then you're the one I'm talking to. And so I took that approach. Later, because the girls were seniors in high school, I pulled them aside. And even then, I probably would have done it differently, because I didn't have all the facts. I thought I did, but I didn't. And that's a good lesson for all of us. Before you make any judgments, anything dealing with your team or your business, make sure you got all the facts, because there is usually 2 sides to every story. And I think at the time I didn't realize that. So I misjudged this a little bit. I think it turned out okay. I'm still dealing with it. Because I'm not going to let it go until I think it's solved. And that may be a long time.
Another great lesson I learned from you is a lesson of focus. Can you talk about focus, why it is so important for personal success and business success?
Yeah, it's my favorite topic. I often get the opportunity, not as often as I used to, but to talk to groups. And I always have a prize, a T-shirt or something to give away if somebody can tell me what the master skill is. Well, I get a lot of answers, and all of them are good. And in some ways, all of them are right. A lot of things are master skills. What I'm searching for is focus. And if I have to start spelling it out, I do, and somebody will get it sooner or later. You can call it focus, you can call it concentration, you can call it listening, paying attention, whatever you may want to label it as, but I always come back to the focus. The ability to focus is one of the most important skills that we can have. And what most people think is, well, you either have it or you don't. And I don't believe that. I think it can be taught. I think it can be worked on. I think you have to stay on it day after day after day. And if it's a sports skill, you have to teach people how to focus. And
how do you teach that? How do you learn that?
When I teach shooting, we get in close to the basket, And it may seem like if you're shooting 2 feet away from the basket, well, that's not hard. Well, I tell you what, it is hard if you just flip it up there. But if you are concentrating on that shot with good form, you're going to make it, and you're going to redo it and redo it and redo it, and consequently you're refocusing. Oh, all of a sudden I missed one from 2 feet. How did I do that? You lost your focus. Just that simple.
You had that great exercise to start practice with, telling people get in close and make 100 shots in a row. And this was such a tough exercise because you had to focus for 100 shots.
Yeah, and you think that's easy. It's not easy. Some people obviously are better at it than others. They come equipped to you as a person in your business or a person in your on your sport team. They're more capable of doing certain things. Are people made or born? Well, there's a little bit of each. Good players, good athletes, yeah, they're made. You got to work hard. You got to have that work ethic. You got to have the attitude. You got to have the skill development. But at the same time, some people just are more gifted than others. Before any coach ever gets to them, some kids can run. Some kids can throw, some can catch. No one's ever taught them that. So some people come to you with more skills. The same thing would be in business. Some people have that personality, that ability to sell. Others have to be taught. So I think anything in life is a little bit of each, whether it's you're born with it or you worked hard enough and developed the skills. But focus and concentration is a key to the whole thing. If you can't do that, I think you're destined to not be able to do that at all. And unfortunately, it may carry over into other parts of your life. I think somebody can focus on one thing has the ability to focus on other things. And I think it absolutely needs to be constant. It can't be here one day and then the next. And that's why I think it's a favorite word of people in sports, especially, and I'm not familiar enough with the business world, but I would imagine that the business world, the political world, what it might be, is the same thing. You've got to stay focused, and if you can, you're going to get the job done.
You talked about talent. You talked about focus. Is focus something everybody can learn?
I think so. I think some obviously are going to be better at it than others because, again, I say they come to you more equipped. You know, we're not all the same intelligence. We're not all the same this or that. We're all a little bit different. And so I think some are more capable of being taught and to get to a point where it becomes second nature, where it just happens. It doesn't have to be something you think about. Going back to the shooting illustration, I have to think about it.
Okay.
I have to think about it.
Let's assume we have a listener of our podcast here who always had trouble to focus so far in his or her life. What are the 3 steps you would recommend to improve your focus?
Well, number one, I think know what you want. What's your goal? What do you really want in this skill development or in this business venture or what it is? I think you got to have a goal to begin with. If you don't have a goal, you don't have some place you want to be, something you want to accomplish, then where are you going to go? You're going to go in circles. And your inability to focus is going to be scattered all over the place. You have it sometimes, you don't have it sometimes. So I think that all generates with somebody that has a goal in mind. And then, of course, having the attitude to know how much work it's going to take.
So that's point number 2, having the attitude to know how much work it's going to be.
Sure. And then thirdly is just the work ethic to spend the time, and it may take a lot of time. More time than maybe you're willing to give. You know, be honest with yourself. If I want to be the very best at something, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time. I use myself as an example. I was I think, by today's standards, an average athlete, but I had in mind I wanted to be the best free throw shooter in the world. Come on. How can that be? I'm a little skinny kid from a little small town in the middle of Kansas. How can I be the best in the world at that? Well, I don't know, but I believed it. I had the attitude, and then I was willing to work at it. I shot free throws till I was blue in the face. And as a result, I became extremely confident because I'd spent so much time at it that when I stepped to the free throw line, it wasn't any question, was I going to make it? It was just, I'm going to make it. And I did. But I spent the time, I had the attitude, and I had the goal. And as a result, I don't know if I was ever the best in the world, but I was pretty darn good. And even at 80 years old, I can still shoot free throws.
You can still shoot free throws. Do you still have the record for free throw percentage?
You know, I don't. Here at Emporia State, a young man came in here from Colorado a few years ago, and I think he shot 92%. He was good. Okay. Yeah, he was better than me.
Let's talk to an ambitious listener of our podcast who are already successful and who want to excel on that level. I remember one of your sayings you always taught in the gym is, chase two rabbits and you lose them both. Give us your thoughts on that saying for sports and especially for life.
Yeah, I think probably more so for life itself. Again, it goes back to maybe having a goal of what you want out of life. You want to serve. You want to be rich. You want to be liked by a lot of people, whatever it may be. There's lots of worthy and a lot of unworthy things in life that could be our goals. But, it goes back to focus. You focus on too many things at the same time, you got problems. Now, I'm going to talk the other direction. If you want to be a great athlete, you got to go different directions all in one moment. You got to focus here, got to focus there, all within seconds. And so in some ways, chasing two rabbits, if you're going to be a great athlete, you got to be able to chase two rabbits and catch them both, which we both know might be very difficult. But for the most part, chasing two rabbits and you're not going to get either one of them is a good life lesson, because sometimes we want too many things. We're not going to be able to have this. Maybe it's a family. I want to have a family, but I want to be the richest guy in town. Sometimes they are contradicting each other, and you're not capable of doing both. And so you better pick one. I want to be a good family man. I want to take care of my family, obviously, but maybe I don't have to be the richest man in town. And so consequently, I think it's a good saying for anybody in any profession and in life itself.
I also remember you always saying, guys, to the players, guys, do the thing that's hard to do and the power will come. And that was such a great lesson. Can you talk about that?
I still use that one because I'm coaching girls, high school girls, and you think everything we try to teach them is easy. No, it's hard, really hard. Well, you can't give up, okay? And the things that are hard to do, if you just keep at it, keep the right attitude, keep at it. I mean, and it may take a week, it may take a month, it may take a year, but those things that you need to get better at, you've got to stay with it. And eventually, and this is true in almost anything, eventually, bingo, there it is. The power just emerged. Like, where'd it come from? Well, it came from hours and hours and hours of focusing and working on it. And, I mean, such a pleasure in life as a coach, or other people in other professions, to see somebody emerge that, wow, all of a sudden they got it. And it's been hard. Even our own children, what a pleasure it is to see them struggle in life with certain things. Maybe it's walking, maybe it's talking, maybe it's catching a ball, or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden, Bingo, there it is. You know, what a pleasurable moment in life that is for us.
Thanks for sharing. That's a great inspiration. And you've been, Coach, you've been such a great inspiration to my life. I wouldn't be where I am today without having you on my side now for 2 decades. And if I think back, there have been many moments where you really impressed me and had a huge impact on my life. And one thing was when we had camps here in Emporia, and outside it has 40 degrees in the summer. We had lunch. We practiced with the players for 3 hours in the morning, and I was dead tired. We had lunch, the next coaches meeting right away, and I just want to sleep. And you were full of energy all day long. Now you're 80 years old. We're here together in Emporia. You're full of energy all day long. How do you do it? Talk about energy, please.
Well, I think as I talk to coaches, and the same could be said about any kind of person in leadership position. If you're going to expect things from other people, you gotta be first. And I think energy is something that often gets overlooked, no matter what it's coaching or being the head of a corporation or even being a parent. You want your kid to have energy, you better have energy. Now, in my case as a coach, I always tried to be in better condition than any of my players. Well, as I got older, that got more difficult. There's no question about it. Today, at 80 years old, am I in as good a condition as some of my players will be? No, I'm probably not. But a little bit, I fake it till I make it. They would never know it. And sometimes that's what you got to do. Circumstances in life just dictate that. And so I think a lot of things right now, I've always been an upbeat person. I've always been very positive. I sometimes want to live a life of a centenarian, and what I mean by that is a person that lives to be 100 years old. And today there are lots of centenarians, and I kind of live by a motto that I've developed that, number one, they're positive. If you're going to live to be 100, you better be positive. And if I'm going to have energy, I better feel like I've got energy. And if I don't, I'm going to fake it until I make it. I've got to be able to be flexible in my attitude. It could even be physically flexible, but I really mean in your attitude. And I think people that are in the category of being 100 years old, they are positive, they are flexible, they've got to be able to handle loss. I've had losses. That's
a huge point. How do you handle losses?
Yeah.
Not just losses on the basketball court, but losses in life.
Yeah, and again, to be a centenarian, you've got to handle the loss almost always of a spouse. How often does it happen that one spouse passes away and not long after the other one passes away because they did not handle that loss? And it happens all the time. Now, as I lecture to coaches, those coaches, it's almost a death in the family when they lose. They just cannot handle the loss. And so you're going to be a coach, you better learn how to handle it. Well, to answer your question, how do I handle it? I've always handled it, I hide it. Do losses hurt? Absolutely they hurt. And but to look at my demeanor, you wouldn't know. In fact, sometimes probably been criticized, and well, he doesn't care. Oh, I care. I care a lot. But to go crazy like coaches do, people do, parents do, after losses and swearing and stomping and being crazy, it happens everywhere in the world, and it is so ugly. And I think the thing that has helped me on that is I've watched other people who have been so ugly that I don't want to be that way. It's just not a good thing as an inspiration, or the lack of an inspiration to other people when people act that way. And so you just try to counteract it and act the other way. Now, do we go back to work the next day? You're darn right. We take the mistakes we've made, try to correct them, and just go on. But if you want to belabor something, you want to belabor that loss, you're going to die a slow death, and that's what people, again, at that centenarian level do.
Many interesting points in that answer. Thanks for sharing. You said keep an upbeat attitude, and you just talked about emotions. Do you agree that emotions make you weak? You just talked about the parents who let out their emotions, their anger. Do emotions make you weak if you just show them?
Oh, I don't think so in any way. I think possibly negative emotions, and that's what I was referring to, that we just get out of control. We see it all over the world, whether it be politicians or military or business or any walk of life. People get out of control. And those kind of emotions, what good do they do? You say, well, I feel better. Oh, not really. I can't imagine anybody that makes a scene that gets out of control. I got it off my chest. I feel better now. No, I don't think so. I think in a way they feel much worse. And hopefully they learn from that. So I just think emotions of that kind are just no place for it. Now, does that mean that we all have to be perfect and never lose your temper? I think that would be inhuman. I think we all are going to be at times when we lose our temper, but you just can't get it out of control where it affects other people. And now it's a hurtful thing, and you can't have it. Now, on the other side, the positive emotions, oh my, I think that's the most important thing in the world, is to display emotions. I love, I don't mind people when they win to be happy. You say, no, you gotta keep control either way. Well, I hear that, but come on, we're taking away a lot of the joy of competing. It's okay to show some emotion. Now, if you keep that emotion, then you're a little bit out of control on the positive side. You got to get back to work. And so there's a little bit of either way on that emotional thing, but I think it needs to be on the positive side, and then it's a plus. On the negative side, it's definitely a negative, and I think all research ever done about positive and negative emotion would say that negative emotion is going to be hurtful in the long run.
Yeah. Good points. Another scene I still vividly remember where you just changed my life within 10 seconds was at a camp here in Emporia, and you gave a speech to the coaches. We had a coaches meeting, and you started out saying, there are people who believe in Santa Claus. There are three kinds of people: those who believe in Santa Claus, those who don't believe in Santa Claus, and the third group is those who are Santa Claus. And then you said, as a coach this week in camp, you are the Santa Claus to the 500 campers here. And that phrase just stuck with me until today. And I still remember I was sitting there in the chair and I made a decision that sticks with me until today, Coach. And I said, I want to be the Santa Claus for all the other people in my whole life. And give us your thoughts on that, because that's such a great saying and a great lecture.
Yeah, that's great to know that somebody was listening.
Yes, I listened.
Yeah, it is a good line. Obviously, the people that believe in Santa Claus are those positive people out there, and we all want to be that, even though we may revert sometimes to something else. But we want to be believe in Santa Claus, have a faith that things are going to be okay, and that we're generally very positive. The ones that don't believe in Santa Claus, obviously, are those grumpy people out there that are negative, and we all know somebody that just finds negativity in everything they do. I don't care what it is, they're going to find something wrong with it. And, those people are so hard to be around. You want to love them, but they're so hard to love because they just find fault in everything. And then, of course, on the other side of it, and you try to make it stick with whatever group you're talking to, in this case, the coaches, that we think coaches can be Santa Claus. It doesn't mean they are, but they can be. The people that are giving have the characteristics that Santa Claus has. He's a giving person. You know, I have some quotes that I use sometimes about giving. Let me think. It's a Mark Twain. Who was an author here in the United States, long time ago, passed away. But Mark Twain said, a kind act or a giving act is like making the blind see and the deaf hear. The blind see and the deaf hear. A kind act is the same thing, and that's pretty profound. You put it in those terms. So be a Santa Claus. If anybody has never played Santa Claus at Christmas, they ought to try it, because you kind of turn into a different personality. I'm obviously not a big guy, but you put a couple pillows in my stomach and put a mask on me, and I turn Santa Claus. And Santa Claus is that person that we'd all love to be like, 24/7, every day of the year. Hard deal to do, but that's what we'd like. And some professions lend itself more than others. Coaches have the opportunity. If you want to be a Santa Claus, you can. If you want to be, I don't believe in Santa Claus, you can be that too.
The metaphor in that saying is also interesting. Of course, a Santa Claus enriches the lives of especially kids. And that was a big meaning for me. A Santa Claus in the metaphorical way is a person who always improves the lives of other people.
Yeah, exactly. And what I said previously when we first started, you help enough other people get what they want, and you're going to get what you want. We all, I did this once in my trips to Germany. I think I may have told you this, but I am thinking on the way over there, why am I so excited? I've been here before. It's a lot of work. It's a long 5 days. Can I do this? Can I keep the energy that I have to have as one of the co-directors? I'm thinking, why am I so excited? Well, I finally, it's like a light bulb. I finally figured out what it was. And it's happened to me in other parts of my life. I'm selfish. And I started my lecture with the German kids that summer with saying, I'm selfish. Well, nobody likes a selfish person. But what I explained, what I meant by that, I was a selfish person because I was giving to them everything that I could. But I was getting in return more than I could handle. So that's why I was so excited that I knew I'm going to give, but I'm going to get. And I think people who are giving type of people are selfish because they know things turn around. You help enough other people, it's going to turn around, boomerang right back at you, and your life is going to be enriched because of it.
That's very inspirational. Okay, let's talk about life. You have 80 years of life experience, and for a young person who's like 20, 25, there's nothing more enriching than learning from a person who has a life experience. Imagine you have a 20-year-old standing in front of you, boy or girl, saying, give me the 3 most important keys. How do I become successful in life? What would be your answer?
Well, I'm going to go back to that positive attitude. That's number one. I don't care what direction we're going. That's still really crucial that you have that positive attitude. The other thing, and again we've hit on it before, but that general attitude about life. And again, we talk about attitude, but attitude towards what? Attitude about serving, about giving, about being a good person, about being able to handle adversity and the other things we've talked about. That attitude is an awfully big word. And something we haven't talked about, and it could be a third point, is to be patient. I think young people sometimes want it now. I want to be the best now. I want to be number one now. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we just snapped our fingers and that was the way it happened? It doesn't. as we get older. We know that. Sometimes I will talk to a group and say, hey, you're probably as smart as I am. Every bit, maybe more so, as far as just being smart. But I guarantee you, I'm a lot wiser than you are. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying I'm wiser than you are because I have made a lot more mistakes. And that's going to go back to those people, that 23-year-old that wants to move ahead in life. Are you old enough? Have you had enough life experience to be kicked in the teeth, to have the adversities of life that you've had to battle and figure out a way to beat it and to get back on the saddle? And that calls for patience. And I think sometimes young people, oh man, that's hard. Really hard. And I think sometimes the younger, the harder it is. When you're 23 years old, you haven't made enough mistakes in life yet to have learned from it. That's going to school, going to college, having degrees, all of that's very nice. But life lessons are far more important. The ones we learn by getting kicked in the teeth and by failing and getting up and failing again. And maybe a third time you're down and out, but you got to get up. And that takes a lot of attitude. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of perseverance, all those kind of good words that we can put on it. But I think that word patience, I think, comes into play a great deal. Now, how long do you become patient? Well, I'll say however long it takes. Is it a year? Is it when I'm 30? Well, I want to tell you, my best years of my life were when I was in my 50s. Yeah. That doesn't mean my 40s and 30s weren't good, but my 50s were the best.
That's such an interesting point. Why? Please explain it to all our young audience. Why are the 50s, why have they been your best years?
Well, it's a long story, and I'll try to make it short, but I had paid my dues, and sometimes you have to pay your dues for years. And I was leading a good life. I was having a successful career, but I was continually paying my dues. And all of a sudden, paying my dues started to pay off. And one thing happened, then another thing happened. All of a sudden, it's a snowball effect. And all of a sudden, like, wow. I've had people ask me, why do you get to do that? What did you do? Why are you so special that you get that honor or whatever it may be? Well, you don't set out in life I want to get honors or I want to get trophies or I want to get this or that. You try to go a day at a time in a way, and that's what I was doing. And it just took that long till I was 50 years old. And then all of a sudden it snowballed. And like, wow, life is wonderful.
You talked about failure, Coach. Let's go back to the situation. You have a 20-year sitting across of you, and he asks you, hey, Coach, what are your 3 biggest mistakes you made in life? Where you would say, hey, make sure you avoid those mistakes. Don't fall into the trap, or don't make those things I made because they lead you in the wrong direction or didn't work out the way I expected it to be.
Well, I could say one thing right off that comes to mind, that don't try to be somebody else. It just doesn't work. And I think early in my career, I tried to be like my coach. Now, my coach was very influential to me, as a lot of people in life, of everyone, their various influences. My coach was very influential. But I tried to be like him. Couldn't do it. I wasn't very good at it. And fortunately, I learned early that I wasn't very good at it because I saw somebody else doing the same thing, and it was ugly. It was ugly, and I don't want to be that person. And so I made some real changes early in my career to be who I was.
How did you do that?
Well, just be myself. Not try to emulate.
But here's the point. That sounds so simple. But just let's take the day to day, and now we got late afternoon here, and we've been walking around town, and you introduced me to so many people, and hardly anybody of them has been what I call authentic. How do you live your authentic self? And you definitely are authentic.
Well, I try not to categorize people. You know, these people are this, those people are that. They're all good people, and I want to be friends to all of them. Now, can you be friends to all of them? No. The more successful you are, and that's another, I think, point to be made, that you're not going to make everybody happy. Everybody is not going to be your friend. And the more successful you are, there's going to be more people that don't like you. And you cannot let it deter you. And I think I've seen that people say, look at me, and like, who in the heck are you? You know, why did you get this or get that? We're sitting here in this auditorium, and the floor has my name on it. There have been a lot of good people whose name could be on that floor. And so some people are resentful of that. And again, and you go back to that 23-year-old, that's a good lesson right there for them. The more of a leader you are, the more people won't like you. That doesn't mean you step on toes to get where you want to get, but people are just jealous. It's a human trait, and you don't like it. You don't want to be like that, and that's, again, going back to being myself. I don't think I'm a jealous person. I'm maybe envious of what other people do and have. I think that's okay, but when you get to be flat jealous, I think that's a negative emotion. And I try to keep that out of my life and be friendly to the people that are the leaders in the community and the people who I don't even know. I ran into two people at the grocery store yesterday, an old couple. He was 81, she was 82. They were sitting outside the grocery store, said hi to me. I smiled and said hi back. They stopped me and said, "You got a beautiful smile." And I said, "Well, who are you?" And they told me who they were. And they sit there in front of the grocery store and try to get people to smile. Oh, what a wonderful way to spend your life. And I complimented them. I didn't know who they were, but I guarantee you they were helping people as they went through their daily lives. Get a smile on your face. Smiles can melt away a lot of negative feelings, and I try to do that.
Thank you. Coach, you're 80 years old now. What are your dreams, your goals for the future? Do you still have goals, or do you just live by the term, hey, I enjoy every day?
Well, I enjoy every day, but, you know, it's a crazy goal, but I want to live to be 100. I want to be one of those centenarians, and try to live each day, try to stay in good physical condition. Also stay in good mental condition. I think the two things together are important. You know, I've got 20 years to go. Will it be easy? No, it won't be easy. I've got a lot of things in my life I like to do, and that's a plus because I stay busy. And when I was talking about centenarians a little while ago, a fourth point that I didn't make was stay busy. You want to live to be 100? Stay busy. How often you see people who retire, they don't do anything. How long do they last? Not very long. And that's not going to be my problem. I'll stay busy.
Cool. Coach, thanks for sharing all those things with us, and especially thank you from my side for the last 20 years we spent together. You had a lot of influence on my life. You've been a source of inspiration for me, and I learned so many things from you in terms of attitude, which still help me today. And I'm so grateful that we get to meet again here in your home arena. And if you want to watch that podcast on YouTube, you can see the gym in the background. And yeah, let's finish that podcast off. You got the last word, whatever you want to tell our audience.
Well, first of all, Chris, this is a great opportunity for me because as you get older, you don't have many opportunities influence other people. And maybe that's what I try to do every day. Can I help somebody every day? Something small. It's usually small. Small things are important. Jim Valvano, a great coach here in America, died of cancer and had a great quote. He was on the ESPYs here in America. They had to drag him onto the stage because his cancer was so bad. In fact, he didn't last very much longer after this. But he made the comment that God must love the common man. And I related to that day because I feel like I'm pretty common. And he went on to say that God must love the common man because there's so many of us. And there are. Yes, there are people way up there and way down here, but most of us are right here in the middle, in that middle of whatever it may be. I think I'm there. But do we have to just accept mediocrity? No. There are opportunities in your life. Step forward. Take advantage of those. Be a leader. Be a follower. You got to be both. Good leaders have been good followers. And I hope that we've said something here today that might be helpful to someone out there. And that's what life's all about.
Yeah, one more thing comes to my mind now before we finish off. Mike Krzyzewski. Mike Krzyzewski, the biggest basketball coach in the world at the moment, has been the head coach of the American national team for 10 years. Was it 10 or the last 8 or 10 years? And you're a good friend of him. You've been his assistant. You got me in touch with Coach K and made it possible for me to work with him for 3 summers in a row. He's not very well known in Germany, but still he's the basketball coach. Just give us your last thoughts on what did you learn from Coach K?
Yeah, and I think he's one of those people that's been a big influence in my life. I did spend one summer with him as an assistant to the World University Games. And people ask me, why is he so special? Because he is special. He is one of the, if not the best coach in the world. It's an easy answer. And we've talked about it during this podcast, and so I don't want to be redundant, but I'm going to say it anyway. That guy is so focused. You want to know why he's who he is and why he's so successful at what he does? He is extremely focused. And, you know, my time I spent around him, I saw that. I recorded it on little recordings that I made. I wrote it down. And I think it's been an influence on my life that it helped me in my coaching and how to coach to be focused. And the results are fantastic in whatever you may choose it to be.
Coach Slay, thanks for sharing. Best of luck, best of health for the next 20 years. You're 80 now. When you turn 90, on your 90th birthday, I will fly back over here. We're going to have another podcast interview. So I see you again in 10 years for sure. And yeah, thank you. You're a special person.
And you'll be in your 50s. 50s are good.
Yeah. Best 10 years coming up. Coach Slay, all the best. So, thank you.